Who should we vote for at the upcoming election? This is a question that needs to be answered in a few months, and every political party all political parties have started making their bids to the general public. Now, taking a look back at how Sri Lankans have voted during the past few decades, we've always voted based on emotion. Some of the key slogans have always been ending corruption, and then punishing wrongdoers for the mistakes that they've done and for corrupt activities that they've been involved in. But none of that has really materialized over the years. How are we supposed to vote at the upcoming election? To discuss these matters and much more, of course, we've got with us today a representative of the United National Party, no less than the former Finance Minister, Ravi Karunanayake. A very good evening, Mr. Karunanayake, and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Shahan.
And thank you very much for joining us on our program, because I think it's very, very hard for us to get representatives from governing parties or parties that are in government to come on shows, of course, because they're being asked the hard questions as to what are you doing now and why are you doing what you're doing. So let's start off with the most controversial piece of legislation, at least during the present times. We'll discuss a little bit about this, and then we'll get into your cup of tea, which is finance and the economy of Sri Lanka. The online safety bill was passed in Parliament. There was much criticism against it. Even the Asian Internet Coalition also voiced their concerns over this bill. But to date, I believe even surveys conducted across Sri Lanka really point out that a majority of the general public don't really know what this bill is about, or now what this act is about, and what the government really intends to address through this act. Now, yesterday, seeing the views that were expressed in Parliament, there were various views expressed in Parliament by the government faction. Mr. Rohit Gunawardena said that there were misrepresentations on why he was called Rattarang, and there were many of those kind of views flowing in Parliament that really didn't address the biggest issue, which is what is this act and why did the government bring it? So are you able to give us a direct answer to this question?
Yes, Sharon. My feeling is, firstly, I must say that I'm a very open, media-minded person. So I also have strong views as to there should be a sense of balance that exists. And online safety bill, I think, has been trumpeted well beyond its real scope of activity. All that was expected was to ensure that you register so that you are able to have somebody who is held responsible. Now, if something goes on in this wonderful station, you know, it comes down to, yes, there is a sense of responsibility.
Okay.
But you have the social media, nobody at all. So that all they want to do is a sense of registration. Now, if you tell somebody a certain thing, he must be able to stand by what he says, not to be hiding, you know, behind some fake accounts that are there and keep bashing.
But is this a reintroduction of criminal liability for defamation? Is this a reintroduction?
I think one of the most stupidest thing was to ensure that criminal liability was taken away.
But that was done by none other than your leader,
yeah, but
Ranil
everything
Wickremesinghe.
he does may not be acceptable to many. He did it in good spirit. I mean,
but now he regrets it. Does he regret it?
No, I don't think he regrets it.
But he has brought it back.
No, he has not brought it back. He is keeping the Criminal Liability Act that he removed. When people were saying don't do it, he brought it out because he is a very open-minded media guy as well. So when he does that, but who got bashed most was him himself. Sometimes the doers in this country get bashed well beyond what is accepted. And the only thing the online safety bill that brings in, and I saw certain things that are exposed by politicians. I mean, it's a sense of duplicity. They say something in the night and they do something in the morning. When then government is one thing and then opposition is another. All that was expected is to take onus of responsibility.
But do you honestly believe that this duty of taking responsibility for statements made will also be enforced against politicians? Because I don't think I really need to mention this, but it's common knowledge that politicians appear to be above the law. Law is not enforced against them, maybe not by executive fiat, but at least due to fear of repression. So do you think that this this onus would extend to politicians as well, or those in power?
I think the politicians are the most susceptible because they have no room of freedom at all. They get bashed for reasons known and unknown as well.
No, but what I'm asking is, would the responsibility of taking onus for their statements? Let's take a very simple example. Parliamentarian Chandra Jayasumana said a few years ago that Dr. Shafi had clipped the fallopian tubes of women and made them barren. He said he has done this to thousands of women, and those thousands of women now can't have children. This is a serious allegation. Do you think this responsibility would extend to him?
Absolutely.
It would.
It should be. They must go after.
It should, but would it?
Look at the impact on doctor who is a professional, who has no recourse. He doesn't have parliamentary privileges.
Exactly.
How unfair it is to him and his family.
But would this extend? I mean, you can say anything in Parliament.
I think now also they should go behind and ask where it is. If Dr. Shafi, he should take a defamation action against Chanda. Why? I mean, what is he? That is the type of thing that needs to be corrected. I mean, politicians are not infallible, nor are they protective from after doing a wrong. They should be not held responsible. They must be held responsible. I totally agree with the example that you took. And that needs to be rectified and give recourse to people who don't have that sense of protection that exists.
But when you say that needs to be rectified now, I know you're not a representative of Parliament, but of course you have the years of the President, you are in the United National Party, so in all honesty, it's up to you to enforce this. So when you say it should be enforced, really my counter question to you is, will it be enforced?
Well, I think I'll request Dr. Shafi to take a case of defamation against Chanda. That will prove whether he'll be blocked or not. I mean, nothing more that can be done, no, Shannon, because, I mean, my frank feeling is I'm with you all as well, as media, but also it is unfair to get bashed for no reason committed by those people as well.
So, Mr. Karunanayake, now I got a few calls from individuals of a certain stature in society asking me now, what is up with this online safety bill? What can we say? What can't we say? How should we protect ourselves from criminal liability? So at least on that point, I believe the government has really failed on creating awareness about what people can do and what are the criminal offenses, because there is a presupposition in law that you can't plead, you can't say, I don't know the law. I didn't know that this was a crime. That is not a defense. So what really is the crime?
That doesn't come only from online bill, no, Shalan. Ignorance of juris is non-excusat. That's a Latin phrase. I'm not a lawyer, but that's when I'm doing my accountancy, that was one of the areas. Ignorance of law is no excuse.
Exactly.
So that doesn't need to have an online bill to say that, no?
No, but my question to you is...
accepted policy that goes...
Final question on this is, but what really is criminal under this act? So you can't say anything. You can't say anything that a 5-member commission appointed by the president would deem to be untrue. Would that be a fair interpretation?
Sharon, I wouldn't like to profess that I know a legal interpretation of that. But all I want to say is that nobody should take this disadvantageously to anybody. It is there only to have a sense of protection and a sense of legalizing that entity, that particular person who's writing. If he says he has written something, stand firm with your conviction.
Okay, even the Minister of Public Security, speaking in Parliament yesterday, admitted that there are some shortfalls in this act, but he said that we will pass this act today and then bring in amendments later, first of a different procedure.
This country goes through that creating monsters, and then when that monster becomes a little mouse that is there somewhere with no action, everybody basically dies down. But to bring it in there, now let's see, people love to go to Qatar, to Dubai, to Singapore, to Thailand, all over. I mean, they have the online safety bill in a much more dangerous manner. Does anybody talk of, no, I don't want to go to Qatar because online safety bill is there?
Yeah, but there's a difference between going to Qatar and living in Qatar.
No, so, I mean,
this is where we live. This is our home.
More people love to live in Qatar and Dubai and all that in Sri Lanka, no? So
I think that's just a clout.
no, I wouldn't say so at all. I'm saying because this monster is being created. So let's ensure that I am on the side of freedom that exists, a freedom that you must be able to express your ideas in any way, but take responsibility.
Let's move on to some of the more pressing issues. Now, the United National Party is, of course, a contender at this election. Your leader will be contesting. However, is that finalized? Will your leader be contesting for the presidential election?
Well, the impression is that there will be a presidential election.
Okay.
There will be a general, there will be a provincial, all the elections that will come in 24 that was mentioned. And in the process, all parties are getting ready for elections. And there has to be a clear mandate that needs to govern is a general impression among the country. So with that, the best of people must come forward and ensure that you get a mandate from the people. Now, in the process, this country has gone through some cynical things that are there, where today people, general citizens, just hate the politicians for various reasons, and it needs
Some
to
might
be
even say for good reason.
good reasons for many. Beyond 95% of the politicians may work in a correct way, but there are 3-4% that ruin the entire name. So ensure that correction. But this seems to be a phenomenon that is going across the world. Every area is the same type of phrases that are used, and it has become a very common thing all over. So I think the sense of cynicism needs to go on, and you have got to ensure a sense of justice comes to the country.
I think when you call it a sense of cynicism, I think it's really the hypocrisy that boils the blood of the people.
Both sides.
If I'm putting it very, very loosely.
I would say so. You're right, but hypocrisy from both sides. People's behavior, politician behavior, and media's expressions of that same thing. You know, you basically...
When you say media expression, I mean, for example, let's take a look at something that happened in Parliament just a few years ago. I don't think even a decade ago. We had on the one side the leader of the opposition, Ranil Wickremesinghe, at the time. I'm really unsure as to which time this happened, but there was a time, and there's this viral clip where Ranil Wickremesinghe stands up and he says, "Kauda hora, Mahinda hora," and the United National Party at the time, with whoever was with the group at the time, continued to scream the same. And on the other side, you get Mahinda Rajapaksa standing up and shouting, "Kauda hora, Ranil hora." So now when you get both of these factions coming together to form a government, then either you are a thief or you're a liar. Both traits not ideal for leadership. How do you justify that?
Well, you took a good example, but you have the same lot of people who basically say how holier than thou each one is today, when in 70s, 80s, 90s they broke the entire infrastructure of the country. Then today they are pretending as if nothing has gone wrong. They are on the same side. They are the ones who have helped in all past governments to be formed and otherwise. Then you also have the other politicians that have been in the major parties that have been together. So I guess that's why I say the cynicism has crept into every single party. The 75 years of independence, I don't think any party can say they have not done wrong and they are holier than thou anywhere. So you have got to ensure that there has to be some correctiveness. That's why Shah and I said this country needs a media that will help in nation development. I'm telling across all. I mean, you go to Singapore, you go to Thailand, you go to even Indonesia recently, it is country driven. I mean, you basically don't have, you know, here one dog came and beat the other dog and that is news. You know, here it is. If you have a half an hour news, you have 20 minutes, which basically takes something that provokes but not nation development. What's the purpose of media?
But Mr. Karunanayake, now, at a time when
No, I mean, do you agree or disagree?
The conduct of...
If the country is going through some bankruptcy and your job is to ensure that you basically have answers economically and
Exactly.
in
I
a
think
regional...
I think that's what I don't know about other media channels, but I can confess that that is what we do here, because when former president...
When I say media, I'm not
No,
saying
I
TV.
understand. It's not accusations. I understand.
Today you have
Media,
12 stations, 90 radios, you know, you have
because
200 social media guys.
When former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa was advocating for the fertilizer ban, outright fertilizer ban, we had experts on agriculture, experts on plantation, coming day in and day out. I mean, after conducting so many programs, I myself could probably sit for a bachelor's degree in agriculture and make it through. Because that's the amount of awareness that we tried to create among the general public. But that really didn't work, even when it came to the IMF and the economic crisis.
It's not opinion creation through media. It is stern, firm policies. You must basically be able to have national policies that are there for a perdurable period. I mean, our national policies are every year or every budget it has changes.
Exactly.
So that is not national policies. That is what you need to basically get today.
But let's tap into the pulse of the people. Now, the people today are extremely angry, and you can't blame them for that. Their standard of living has hit rock bottom. People who used to eat 3 meals a day eat 2 meals a day. The middle class is broken. SMEs are all but gone. So people are very angry, and they want someone to be held accountable for this. And it almost seems as if corruption is going to be a headline theme this year, alongside coming out of the economic crisis and policies. So on corruption, what does the UNP have to offer?
I mean, hasn't Ranil Wickremesinghe brought most amount of legislation that is there in order to clean? That's why I said every single political party, these are bashing that goes up from the time we got independence. All you got to do is to ensure somebody walks the talk. And all that has got to be done now is to ensure that it's very easy accusing something. Go forward. Now, there was, the JVP had 1,000 files. Why don't you go before the courts and ensure these 1,000 files are, given to the courts? And say,
but I think that's an unfair comparison, because when it comes to prosecuting, when it comes to prosecutions, the state needs to prosecute.
What are they doing? They are not prosecutor generals. They make a noise and hear 1,000 files.
So when you say,
how have they got that information?
Corruption.
So how have they got that information?
Is that the important aspect?
No,
because cases were filed by the Bribery Commission.
Don't go on that basis,
cases were filed by the Bribery Commission against Mahinda Nandalutgamage and many other individuals.
I don't think names should be used here, because I am using as a general one.
This is a fact. I'm saying the cases were filed on bribery and corruption by the Bribery Commission against an array of politicians from across the board. And many of those cases were withdrawn or were kicked out of court on technical objections. Proper procedures have not been followed. So in that point, can you really blame the whistleblowers?
No, that's not. The whistleblower is not somebody who is on the streets that can't get 2% and makes use out of that just to be a whistleblower. Whistle will blow louder than anything else, because that's why I said 1,000 files, please go and give it and ensure you take it on. Be there, the drop of a hat there in court now.
Okay,
why can't they basically walk that talk?
So
because this is why I say.
Let's speak about the things that. Let's speak about the things.
One other thing, Shall, you asked a very pertinent one. Now, when people had the choice of having low cost of living and all, they made a strident change that they wanted a change of government.
Yes.
So within that 2 years, all that we were enjoying, low cost of living, interest rates were single digit, etc.
Change of government was driven by the April 21st attack as well.
That's a perception again, no? So that's a perception again. Now that battle is still going on.
That battle
Who, where, what, all those things. So that was change. So when they change, it's a people's want.
Okay, let's talk about a battle
It was not a dictatorial change, no. It was a people's revolt.
Yes.
So with that particular one, it was a choice of the people. So people wanted a competent, may not be 100%, but at least better than the rest approach that was there. And then suddenly they wanted a complete change. The other side of the hill was greener than this side. And within 1.5 years, it was
so
basically.
let's talk about things.
So I don't blame the system change. What I'm saying is the change did bring, because there were certain people who professed to know what they basically knew in their own way, but they knew nothing at the end of the day.
Yes.
And that's what led to it.
Exactly.
So now people that were doing it are castigated, saying they did something wrong when they did perfectly correct. So where are you going to have this?
So let's
That's
talk
why I said
about
the firm national policies are the way forward. That is what basically makes it. Today, I see, just because you take a clown to the palace doesn't make him a king, no. You make the palace look a circus. And that's what
I think Sri Lankans know the feeling.
That is right. Today, that is what is happening in opposition.
But let's talk about
serious talks of this can be done, that can. They had office. Why didn't they deliver when they were?
The head office when
Most of the friends
with
that
you.
are talking today are basically been working along. But they didn't profess to have this competency to display.
So
It's very easy in opposition to tell, hind legs of a donkey that can be done. But when you are given the opportunity, you run to a website and find the answer? No. You have to have practical experience. That's where Ranil Wickremesinghe, the president, I mean, people may say anything, but he has brought the country from 18 months of anarchy to difficult situation. I know cost of living is not easy, but he's not the one who went for bankruptcy. So he is undoing what has been done by some officials. And the other thing I would like you, because I can see your interviews, have been very forthright on certain areas, pushing it to the point. Please ensure that the government servant, 95% of them are the ones who basically do policies in this country. Politicians
implement policies.
Implement as well as carry, as well as guide those politicians. But most politicians
Are not experts in
don't
their
know
subjects.
the subject matter they get. Very few are able to carry out their professionalism in that ministry. So they rely on the government official. So you're talking, I'm saying, okay, if you say president to 225 parliamentary, 457 provincial councillors, 8,400 provincial, the local councillors, you have 9,500. We say all of them are a bunch of crooks. Then you have 1.7 million government servants. Where does this?
But then that's where the Public Service Commission comes in, of course, and that's under under the ambit of the cabinet.
Yes.
It wasn't before. Now it is
Independent. Now, that's what wanted. No, it's independent. Then where is the sense of independence? So that's why I say,
So,
let's,
but there is
let's instead of curse in the dark,
Okay.
let's ensure that we have a healthy thing
But-
that comes along. I know certain people don't do what they say, but ensure there's a more friendly approach rather than this draconian type of approach that, one lot just keeps bashing, the other lot backs, and that nobody gets to any point.
As it stands, there seems to be a lack of good faith. There needs to be a show of good faith from whoever is in power.
Sure.
I do understand that the United National Party is in a tricky situation. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
We must confess that we have been one of the oldest parties and we have faltered in many areas. But I guess we have done much more than all the other parties put together. But sometimes we don't do popular things, but we do the correct things. And owing to the correct things we do, we get bashed and put out of office. We are like a janitorial service. We basically come clean and then we are ready to be sent out. And then the next lot comes and dirties the place and goes beyond redemption. So that is the sense of feeling we get. Of course, some of our colleagues have done certain things which are unpardonable. And that needs to be corrected. We got a whipping in 220. I'm sure we have corrected. We have got the experience. We have got the new faces. We have got a new approach. And that's the way we intend correcting ourselves and going forward. So that's where even President Wickremesinghe, he basically, with one member being a president, I don't think anywhere in the world it has happened. But that's constitution, and he is doing something which nobody else has done. Resurrected the economy from all the queues that were there. When there was no fertilizer, when there's no milk, when there's no gas, when there's no petrol, when there's no dollars, you can see sense of knowledge, experience, political acumen have been put into place and going forward.
But again, on the lack of good faith, a show of good faith from those in power. Now, let's take, for example, the appointment of the Acting Inspector General of Police. Now, the Acting Inspector General of Police, with all due respect to him, of course, has been found guilty by the Supreme Court, no less, of torture in Sri Lanka. So, when the president goes ahead and nominates the name of an individual who has been found guilty of torture by the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, what kind of a message does that send to the general public who go to the police for a violation of their rights and when a crime is committed against them?
Shalan,
how do you...
to be very frank, I would
this?
like to answer a question that I don't have full knowledge.
Okay.
You're
not in Parliament, I understand.
Yes, that's right. So you are putting that forward. But I don't think the president would do anything wrong because he is a stickler to the law. So there may be certain things you're saying and what is not told. It may be two different things that we're talking. So I leave that to the rectification that is there in process law that is going on. But I think it has been done in the manner that is correct, and to see how it goes.
No, we're not doubting the procedure. We're just doubting the logic.
No, I mean, logic comes from different ends. No, one can see that
I
logic.
think it's quite clear.
Other one looks at it magic, you know. So that I wouldn't basically look at that.
I wouldn't push you for an answer on that.
I
of
would,
course, because
because things, when things are in a bad state and moving into a correct state, there has to be a lot of wrong things corrected. And I guess there has been certain things that have been corrected going forward. Because the sense of drugs in this country, it's a menace. I mean, there's killings that are going on, but that was going on even before. So you need to get this out some way or the other. So
the answer
I
to
think
that
there's a
is-
tough call for the president,
I understand.
the public security minister, and the IGP, armed forces. But I hope that this will be cleared, and I think it's moving towards some direction.
So you think the answer to that is to appoint an individual who's been found guilty of torture by the Supreme
I
Court to
don't
the
know
top
that,
spot?
whether that
I
is
wouldn't
right
push
or
you.
not.
I wouldn't push you. I wouldn't push you for an answer.
I don't
to that.
think
No, let's-
that such a thing would be appointed by the president, but he's
Right.
a stickler to the law.
But that has happened. We'll move forward from onto well, the economy of Sri Lanka and what really everybody's looking forward. Now, I've continued to ask those who come on this show as to how their policies are different from those of the rest. Now, the SLPP and the UNP couldn't be more apart on policies because the SLPP is very nationalist, not selling resources. The UNP is more free market economy, liberalization of the economy. So, is that still the stance of the UNP, or has your merger with the SLPP kind of diluted that?
Well, you seem to already so complete that emerging political parties, but there's no such thing of that nature. It is political party. We have 84 political parties. And the sense of merger that you're talking is simply because the President, Wickremesinghe,
Has no
with
support
one
in
member,
Parliament.
has come forward from Parliament. You don't know who voted.
Okay.
I mean,
No,
I mean,
we know who voted.
No, you won't know. It's a secret ballot. So 137 voted. Even the opposition leader may have voted for President Wickremesinghe. You know, so because, I mean, when he had the opportunity...
Again, I think logic comes in.
No, logic comes in because when he had the opportunity, he said no. And then one member person became the president. So you could see, I mean, logic can work in many ways. Because sometimes what is told transparent, it doesn't happen when it is hidden in secrecy.
But the UNP hasn't still put out, you know, a blueprint on the economy or how the UNP is really planning on getting out of this rut that we're in right now.
Well, President Wickremesinghe,
He's implementing it.
he's implementing it right from the start. I mean, when you came in, as I said, you had queues, you had no gas, no petrol, no dollars, no connectivity with the world, tourism was not there. In 19 months, complete change, I'm sure, Shalom, we need to give some credit somewhere. I mean, you can't be bashing a person. He didn't call it for bankruptcy. Somebody else did it. And he is rectifying those errors.
So what about the buy-in? What about the buy-in of the general
I'm not
public?
here to whitewash anybody.
I understand that.
There are certain things that are glaring. I mean, even though it has come out, now the policy with the IMF, I mean, even though I was finance minister, we had the 16th IMF tranche being discussed by us. I think the officials have handled it far too lukewarm. They should have taken, I mean, when you go to bankruptcy, coming out of it is the most important thing.
Yes.
But while doing that, you don't need to be sacrificing the nation to the level of being at bended knees. That area, government servants have been wanting in bringing it from a Sri Lankan solution. Of course, that's easier once again, saying so, but I see with certain knowledge that is there, it'll be easier to tell the IMF, you want 100 billion, give it to us, we'll bring the 100 billion. Don't tell us how to bring that 100 billion. That should be the EPF, the payee. I think it's unrealistic. You know, some of the professionals are being taxed well beyond what they could afford. The SMEs, I mean, they're paying interest rate of 30%. At that time, now of course it's down to 17, 18. But then if the base rate is 8%, then why is it that the interest rates are 18, 20%? So these need to be done. I mean, central bank don't need to be profiting. They must be able to implement the banks to say, yes, you know, base rate, here it is, ensure that it is 10, 11, 12%. So because the country has gone through a central bank needs to ensure that you have the economy not contracting, but ensuring that you add on to the development of the state. It's not only inflationary control, there's a demand side management. You invest on the other side of it. It is, we are only going on the monetary theory of controlling money supply in order to have inflation control. And, that's a operation successful, patient dead. I mean, that is a policy that I have been, then from the day I was finance minister also, I had various discrepancies in the thinking process of central bank and the country. And owing to the fact that there is, at this particular moment, it must be a much more sympathetic approach and not saying, I don't know what is going on. So I am sure that's being addressed by the president, but he's a sole ranger. Lone Ranger.
One final question, Mr. Karunanayake, before we wrap things up on the show because we're out of time. The buy-in of the general public, that has been a main concern. One of the main allegations against the government, the president, is that they don't have the mandate of the people and they don't have the buy-in of the people to do what they are doing right now. Of course, that does not mean that you can just leave everything out in the air and allow the country to go astray. But what kind of importance does the United National Party place on the buy-in of the general public when it comes to these reforms, because so far there has not been a very good buy-in?
Well, once again, it's a perception. When you say, who are the people who say that there is no validity from the people, it is the constitution that comes into play. When Mr. D.B. Wijetunga was elected president...
No, I'm speaking about the buy-in of the general public. You ask a person in the general public, do you agree with these reforms that are being done?
But then, that's what I'm saying. The constitution, no, you have an election for 5 years. You don't have for every 24 hours.
No, I'm talking about the real buy-in of the general public.
So the real buying is because of there has been things that have happened that I never thought could happen. So that's why the constitution takes place. The constitution gives a period for 5 years and that rest of the period that is running through. Now in that period, parties that have 2 members, a party that was broken off from the major parties and have a 15-20, and those are the ones you are saying, okay, there isn't, out of the 225, you don't have X amount that is there. But they have shown over and over again that they have more than 130, 140 that is there. So then the will of the people gets carried out through the constitution. But I am totally with you. There needs to be an election, and that has been very well exemplified by saying that the president said that it will be October, there will be presidential, then general election. So let's ensure we get out of the economic mess. Because people are unable to, you said 2 meals, 3 meals. But I said when they had 3 meals, they opted saying we want a nation rather than our stomachs. ඒක වෙලා අද කණ්ඩ බැරුණාම රට අමතක වෙනවා දැන් කියනවා අනේ මොනවද උනේ. So that is politics. But that's why I say this cynicism needs to come out of it. Now you ask me what is the basis of how we can basically get this country extricated out of the economic mess. I'll just take one easy example. Look at Maldives that is there, which doesn't have anything. They have 2 million tourists that is coming in. Today, we are basically, Haren, the president, is maintaining something and they're bringing from 0 tourists to at least I think we have crossed 1.5 million last year. So you could see numbers are coming in. But they are without anything, they are bringing in roughly $500 a day in tourism. Here, what is the average spend? 100, 150. So when we have everything in this country, our sell policy is not there. That means our infrastructure is there, but our ability to market our country is not there. So there is no proper, I would say, policies in this country. So that's why I say you have to have permanent policies in this country. Now look at, on the other side, education. I just take a classic example. We have 4 million students. You sit, then they sit for the O-levels, which you have about 500,000. Out of the 500,000, 60% get passed and they come into A-levels. 374,000 students sit for A-levels.
But out of that, only a very small proportion makes it into university.
Yeah, 70% gets passed again. So that's 210,000 can go to university.
But they can't go.
Only 40,000 go. Now, why is it not possible, the fundamental right of that other 130,000, they also need to go to university.
True.
But when you open an open university, people hold placards and say, don't do private university. Now, when you open this up, We could have basically been a hub to this region. Indians would love to come in. Pakistan is our region alone. They are going to Australia, they are going to Indonesia, they are going to Malaysia,
Right.
instead of adding Sri Lanka as a point. So I'm saying
Mr.
these are the areas we need to have firm, resolute policies. And this is the opportunity that we need. So instead of telling what is popular, you do what is good and correct for the country.
Definitely,
That
Mr.
is what we
Karunanayake.
are basically looking at.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karunanayake. We've
Thank
gone a
you for
little bit
giving
over
the
the time. Thank you
opportunity.
very much for being so candid in the expression of your views and also for accepting our invitation and coming on face to face. Of course, we will need to see the policies of the United National Party.
Let's take another day, I mean,
before
on policies.
Before we or the general public, of course, decides on who to vote at the next election. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. Until we meet again, take care